Get ready to thrive in 5, 4, 3, 2.
You can have a seat on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, this
Seat at
is.
the table.
All right.
It's rolling, so you guys can start whenever you feel ready. Let's chill.
Okay.
I can count down, which whatever you need.
Alright.
You know, I have these labels, I guess, that are put upon me in what I do. I feel like everything I do is working toward one goal, which is helping other people to realize their value and that there's something that's guiding and directing, healing, and everything. It's the everything of them. But I do that through energy work, energy therapy, things like Reiki, reflexology, etc. I do that through intuitive counseling with people when they come to me and they're having issues with relationships and they want to change the dynamic of the relationship. It's like looking at what are your beliefs about the relationship, what are your beliefs about you, and shifting that because that shifts the dynamic of what's happening. Like classes, webinars, the whole, yeah. Thriving is a comfort, really, in moving through life. Whatever that looks like for the individual, thriving is that I'm not pulled down, weighted down, confused, concerned, worried about what it is to move through life. Thriving for some people is wealth. You know, thriving for other people is family. You know, thriving looks different ways, but for me, it's simply that, again, I'm guided and I'm listening and I'm comfortable through life. No matter what the picture looks like to somebody else, I'm comfortable because I'm comfortable with who I am and what my life is unfolding to look like. That would be thriving for me.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I think it very much involves connection to others because we're not here to live in life in isolation by ourselves. That's why I have a nonprofit called We Need Each Other. You know, we're not here to be in isolation. Spending time with my family and their animals, which is why I don't have to have a dog because they do. Spending time with them is a part of my thriving, is a part of what makes me feel good, is a part of what feels like life to me. Spending time out in the world, out in sunshine and around people is part of thriving to me, that I have the ability to do so. Even in a pandemic, I will not just stay at home. I will be compliant, but I will be around people. And people are so anxious to talk and, you know, be a part of each other's world. And that feels like thriving. It's Thriving is being uplifted, feeling uplifted. And that's uplifting to me. So absolutely, other people are definitely a part of that. It feels so good because I know that when they're thriving, they've gone through a lot. They've gone through a lot. You know, you can't thrive as a black person in this country without going through a lot. That's just the way it is. So it gives me hope for myself and for other people, for our future. It gives me an awareness of our ancestors always supporting us, particularly now. I just feel like our ancestors are right there with us, moving us forward. I feel like this time right now is our time as black people to thrive in a way that we never have had the opportunity before. I think there's an open door for us, and it just feels really good. It's hard. It's hard because a lot of what we see is difficult, and so we're like in between these two worlds. So one world is dying and another one is birthing, and we're in transition phase. You know, I can trace that back to when I was in television advertising. Because thriving at that point, to me, meant financially being comfortable. That was my connection to thriving at that point. And in that industry, I saw all these people with all these trinkets and all these things and cars and all, and I was like, I can have that too. And so I connected to thriving in that way. But then once I had those things, I wanted a child. And that's a whole nother story, because I made a decision to have a child as a single mother. I had been married once at that point. Did not want to have his child because he was an alcoholic. I realized after marrying him from college, you know. And then I felt like my life, I wanted to share all these things with someone. And so I think that was probably the biggest connection to thriving, because when there's someone else that you're caring for, that you want to provide a better world for, then that connects you to something on a whole nother level. And especially, again, I didn't realize that I was doing something out of the ordinary.
Right.
I just was doing what was right for me. I wanted to have a child. I didn't want to get married. I asked this person if we could have a child together. He said, I don't know why I'm not running out the door right now. He was going on vacation. I said, when you come back from vacation, when you call me, when I pick up the phone, just say yes or no before you say hello. And he went on vacation, came back and said yes, and that's where my eldest child came from, Morgan.
Wow.
And then came the next, Carmen.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So they're my thriving. Having children is very much about thriving for me. And watching them thrive now that they're adults. It's such a, like our time on the phone last night, they're talking about these things that are happening in their lives. I'm like, oh my God, the Morgan girls, that's my mother's maiden name. The Morgan girls are doing it. Yeah. And that just brings me such joy. Being in corporate America for a long time took me out of the mindset of thriving. My story is, I always had some connection to something inside of myself from a little girl. I have no words for it. No one explained it to me. I didn't know what it was. But I tell this story of, we had a 2-story house. My bedroom was upstairs. And in the evening time, if something was troubling this child, whatever that might have been, you know, who knows what it might have been, I would go up to my room. I would turn the light off in my bedroom. I would get in the center of my bed. I would pull the covers over my head and then put my hands on my eyes to make it as pitch black as possible, and I would sit and wait for a light. I don't know where that came from. But once I saw that light, I knew everything was good. And then I worked for the Gillette company because they came and interviewed, and I was like, okay, I'll work for that company, you know, and you know, I really wasn't in any spirituality or anything until at some point I was living in Houston. I think I was working for IBM then. Yeah, I started working for IBM, and I learned meditation. And that's what started me back on the path. And then I started practicing yoga, and then I started being careful about what I was eating, and that moved me back into that arena. And I think had I not had that foundation when I went into television advertising, I don't know who I'd be. Because television advertising is a highly stressful, crazy emotional world. And I always had that to fall back on. I always had that to keep me centered. And so that's been a really important part of me in corporate America, finally. You know. You know, there was always that something inside of me that I knew was there, that I trusted. That, like, you know, I said in college I partied, but I was always on the line. I never went over the line. I was always right on that line. But I never went over. There was always something that kept me from going over the line. So there was always something that I was aware of, but not as fully engaged with as I became later. Oftentimes I will do some yoga, some movement first, and then go into meditation. I usually do those in that way, or they could be done. So if I don't do any movement, I go into meditation. I might read something, but I spend some time in contemplation and inward, because that's what helps to take me through my day in a different way. I notice that when I don't spend time in meditation, my days just aren't the same.
Yeah.
You know, that internal work is important. I have what I refer to as a prayer partner. We refer to each other as prayer partners. There's a woman that we've been for 10 years now, since I moved back here, every Tuesday morning, we connect on the phone, on occasion in person, but on the phone to hold each other accountable for our dreams, the things that we're desiring in our lives, and to just be in that spiritual place with each other. And I look forward to that every Tuesday morning. That's how it starts off my day, Tuesday mornings. And as of the last couple of months, on Wednesdays, I have a very dear friend of mine. We get together, we walk, we go to the Starbucks line, get our whatever we drink at Starbucks, and then we do whatever it is we want to do on that day without any connection to anything that could be problematic or whatever in our lives. And we have really great high vibration conversations, and we're very supportive of each other, and we just have a lot of joy. And I look forward to those things because the rest of my week is intense, with classes and coaching and just everything in life is just intense. So those keep me uplifted through the week. I'm usually, as sun is setting, still working. I may have a client session. I have a podcast. I may have an interview for the podcast. I may be researching something for a class. But when it comes 9 o'clock, maybe, it's chill time for me. I'll watch something on television, something mindless as much as possible. I don't like things that I really have to be engaged with, because it's too much focus. I may talk with friends on the phone, but it's a time to relax. I usually have a cup of tea, and just kind of lay back and chill. I've been through a lot in my life. I have 4th stage uterine cancer at one point, where I clearly heard, you're not dying, you will teach from this. So I was like, okay, well, let me rally. Because I wanted to go at that point. I had been to emergency 3 times. And the last time I was just like, oh, I'm done. I had half the volume of blood in my body. I was close to on the other side. But I heard that inside myself, and it made me rally. And 21 years later, here I am. Interesting thing about me is, I think because of that connection I always had from a little girl, though I've grown up in this racist society during civil rights era, saw so much, I never felt connected to it. I never felt like it was specifically my world. It was the world. And so it makes me want to do more, to do better, to help people to learn to live from that place of disconnection from that. I think that's how it affects me. But oddly enough, and I've said this many times, oddly enough, it just, all that I saw and all that I went through and all that I lived through, I never felt the of it within my own personal space. I felt that for my race of people, or for the world, or the place where I lived. If you believe more in what you don't see than what you do see, what you do see, you won't see, and what you don't see, you will see. We're always, our focus and our attention is on those things that we don't want, those things that are happening out in the world, those things that give us strife. But there's something else over here. Look at that. Look at that. Vibrate with that. Connect with that. And then that becomes your world. And this fades away. That's what he's saying. The bigger picture for me is to see the world coming together. To see, and I'm already seeing that. I'm already seeing that. But to see it on a bigger and a bigger and a bigger scale of people accepting each other for who they are, and recognizing that just because I'm looking at you, I don't know who you are. I don't know your history. I don't even know your ethnicity. And to really realize that we can be in conversation with each other, heart to heart, even if we don't agree. But we can have respect for each other and learn from each other. That's the bigger picture for me, because that's a world that I've not really seen. I've seen it in my minute world, but in the bigger space of world, that's not the world that I've lived in. And I'm 69 years old, so I always say I was born colored, then I was a Negro, and then I was black, and then I was African American, and now I'm a native black. So. It sounds like a scream, like a primal scream that just, on its own, just comes out of you, that's so connected with life and with earth and with the elements, and that's just such joy and release. That's just what came. One artist. You know who comes to mind for me when you say one artist? It's Prince. I just adore him. I think he's still alive in me. I have loved Prince since his very first song. You know, that's who came into my mind, is Prince. Not any particular song of his, but just Prince and his genius. He's a genius.